Good afternoon and welcome to Beholden To Truth. It is your humble host, Joshua, here with you for another fun happy hour session, sitting outside of the gym in our mobile office, sipping our pre-workout, getting caffeinated, getting our mind right, ready for a nice shoulder day. Looking forward to that. Got a couple things on my mind that I wanted to talk to you guys about. It's been a little while since I sat down and recorded a vlog. That does not mean I haven't been making content though. First and foremost, I released an exclusive interview with none other than the legendary Ken O'Keefe. So if you guys have seen Europa: The Last Battle, many of you have, that's the guy who's in the very first scene of the documentary, the 12-hour documentary. He's in it multiple times throughout it. But seriously, as soon as you hit play, the first person you see is Ken O'Keefe, and he's talking about how the head of the snake of the Zionist occupation of the West is the money supply. Well, he and I have become friends over the last several months. He showed some support for my content. I reached out to him. We've been chatting. And I promised you guys that I would sit down with him for a full-length, uncensored interview. And I finally got that done. It took a while. When things got a little bumpy a couple months ago with bringing an employee on, that employee ended up being a Judas and betraying me and causing me to lose my job and stealing from me and lying about me and trying to ruin my life's work. All of that stuff sent my plans for sitting down with Ken and recording some content with him into a pause. Unfortunately, had to do cleanup. But I did it. A promise is a promise. We got that interview recorded. I got it all edited, and it is now live on Substack as an exclusive for my Substack subscribers.
The American taxpayer is funding a genocide, and your president is bending over backwards for the Jewish state, and he's literally a subservient little cuck to a guy named Bibi Netanyahu. In 5 years, America's done. Before 5 years, if you play into this hand, it will lead to a civil war. The media will propagate these lies because they work for them. Your politicians will also repeat these lies because they work for them. Hollywood will parrot these lies because they work for them. And your nation will go down as the biggest pedophile, hypocrite, war criminal, and criminal against humanity genocider in the history of the world. So in this sense, you will be the greatest nation in the world. The greatest failure, the greatest example of a spoilt brat who threw it all away, or you could be truly great. White, black, Latino, Muslim, Christian, atheist, pagan, the good ones who actually care about the Republic and the Constitution will unite, and you will overrun them, and you will use the law, and you will prosecute for all of these crimes, including pedophilia. You will end pedophilia. You will end poverty. You will end joblessness. You will end homelessness. The veterans will be taken care of, and all of these traitors will be convicted, and where appropriately, they will be hung according to the law.
The destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the super-states that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
As I said, 2 hours, uncensored, uncut. It's a very good interview. I think you guys are really going to like it. We talk about everything. We talk about the racial situation. We talk about the Charlie Kirks assassination. We talk about the synagogue of Satan. We talk about Weimar Germany, National Socialism. Everything that is typically discussed in these vlogs, you get to hear from somebody who's been doing this work far longer than I have, like 5 times longer. Ken has been trying to expose the synagogue of Satan for 20 years. So listen to one of the OGs talk about this subject. And he provides some very insightful commentary as far as where America sees itself landing in about 5 years based on how we behave today. You know, what our reaction is to the Charlie Kirks situation, this left versus right civil war that's brewing, the disclosure of Jewish influence. How we steer all of these things really determines where America is in the next 5 years. So it's a very valuable conversation. I hope you guys will check it out. As I said, exclusive to my Substack following. We'll release parts of it on YouTube, partly because I can't share pieces of it on YouTube. A little too spicy, if you know what I mean. The community guidelines moderators will not like some of the subjects that we express doubt toward, if you know what I mean. So I'll cut up some pieces of it for you guys, though, and I'll share those on YouTube and Instagram. Also, on that note, Instagram, we are 2,000 followers away from the big 100,000 mark. 98,000 followers as of today. Pretty exciting stuff. I'm guessing in the next 1 to 2 weeks, we'll cross that threshold of 100,000 followers. Unbelievable. Onward and upward, though. We need 1 million. We need 2 million. We need 6 million followers, to be clear. 6 million followers, to be clear. So that's what's been going on behind the scenes. Feels good to be back in the mobile office recording something for you guys. As I've been working on the interview and other stuff in the background, I've obviously been staying on top of the news wire, watching my nightly America First. And the subject that has dominated the news wire is obviously the Charlie Kirks assassination and the fallout from that. And the fallout being how we're supposed to feel right now. Who should our righteous indignation, anger, frustration, political response be directed toward? And I want to talk through really the 3 narratives that I see being portrayed, who is championing them, how they're telling you you're supposed to feel, who you should be angry at, who you should think is behind all of this. There's 3 different schools here, and I want to talk about primarily Nick's response to those 3. And even Nick's response is its own very contested subject right now, because I think everybody assumed Nick, having been the guy for the last 8 years, has been exposing Jewish influence, Israel's capture of our government and all of our civil institutions, international Jewry. Everybody pretty much assumed, based on circumstantial evidence, that Nick would be, obviously, Israel killed Charlie, and the reason they did that was because his sentiment towards Israel was changing over time, and perhaps they believed that his influence over the young conservatives of this country is too valuable for them to risk being damaged by a changing understanding of the world from Charlie Kirk. And so that's why they would displace him from that position of leadership that they were financing, that they groomed him from teenagehood into. They placed him there as a trusted leader of mainstream conservatism to be pro-Israel, to stamp out anti-Semitism, and to basically be the gatekeeper for the young population of this country who are conservative-minded. And if his sentimentality was changing and being a bit more open to some of these conversations about disproportionate influence of Jews in America, their meddling in our government, their representation in the education system, their ties to these cultural ills, feminism, socialism and communism, the LGBT movement, abortion, feminism, the civil rights movement, I think there is probable cause, in my opinion, to say that it's certainly reasonable to come to that belief that this smells like something Israel probably had a problem with, and they just weren't willing to take that risk. Obviously, Nick responded the other way and said, guys, this whole growing awareness of Jewish influence is a good thing. We want mass disclosure of this subject. It's been suppressed for decades. Everybody's careers have been destroyed for trying to talk about it. You've been slandered and labeled an anti-Semite and hateful person and dangerous if you've tried to talk about these things before. So obviously, we want widespread disclosure of this subject. We want it to be in the mainstream conversation. But the danger that comes along with that is the you slip on a banana peel and you blame the Jews syndrome that oftentimes Nick is attributed to having. Alex Jones says it all the time, and primarily Jews and other Con Inc. individuals will say that anybody who goes and attributes the JFK assassination, 9/11, the cultural ills to Jews, oh, well, you just think everything bad that ever happens, anything that you don't like is the Jews. And while there's a lot of truth to that, we can easily fall into the trap of thinking every time something bad happens, obviously, inevitably, it had to be the Jews behind it. And that's obviously not true. There's a lot of foreign interests who have reasons to subvert America. do us harm reputationally, economically, militarily, spy on our government. We have many adversaries in this world. Okay, it's not just the collective Jews internationally who are working against us. So yes, there are going to be cases where Chinese people are spying on us, Russians are spying on us. That's real. That does happen. And they do orchestrate plots to advance their agendas at the cost of American sovereignty and security. So we can't be complete conspiratards, as Nick says, and think that every time something bad happens, it's the Jews. And he says that this is what he sees happening. And he points to the alleged assassination of Charlie Kirk as an example of that, where no hard, concrete evidence has been provided of Israel or Israeli governmental leaders or domestic Jews having a direct hand in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. There's no leaked phone calls. There's no leaked emails. There's no individuals who have been fingered to say, oh, I see where you worked at the IDF, and I see where you were in direct conversation with Tyler Robinson, and I see where you told him how to orchestrate this event. We don't have any of that. There is no hard evidence that says very clearly that Israel did this. Everything that we are using to say it's our speculation just based on a pattern of historical events, an established motive. We know for sure they have the means to do this. We know for sure that there was the opportunity to do this. We can use that body of circumstantial evidence to put forth the argument of why it would make sense for Israel to do this. Nick is not happy with all of the evidence being circumstantial. He says until hard evidence is provided, he is going to go with the official narrative, which to me is disappointing. Because, you can look at the biggest offenses of Israel against our country being the assassination of JFK, or you can look at the largest terrorist attack in America's history, 9/11, 3,000 dead Americans, trillions of dollars in debt, 1 million dead Arabs, decades of war in the Middle East. And through circumstantial evidence, pretty much all of us have come to the mutual understanding that those were both Israel. Do we have very clear, as I said, leaked emails, leaked letters, telegrams, anything like that shows, here it is. Here is the direct order from some Israeli telling somebody to go and kill JFK. Do we have that? No, we don't. Do we have the direct orders coming from Benjamin Netanyahu or somebody else in Israel's government saying, here's the plan. We're going to frame Muslims to do this attack in New York City on the World Trade Center, and then we're going to blame it on radical Islamic extremism, and that will be our way of pulling them in. We don't have confessions. We don't have hard evidence, okay? But we still all pretty much understand how those events were orchestrated. And to me, this is no different. We don't have to sit around. And Nick has said, Nick has a problem with us saying we don't need evidence. He says that's anti-scientific. It's anti-intellectual to say, well, we don't need evidence to assume that Israel was behind this. Well, we don't have the evidence for 9/11 either in terms of that kind of concrete evidence, nor do we have it for JFK. You can put the pieces together and say, yeah, it makes pretty clear, obvious sense. They clearly had the motive and the means. They clearly benefited from it. Pretty sure it was Israel. So I don't know what's going on with Nick. I don't know what his hesitance is to provide more credence to the FBI narrative than the historical pattern of Israel, acknowledging that, no, we don't actually need concrete evidence. The circumstantial body of evidence is enough. And this isn't a matter of a criminal court where we have to have that level of evidence to go and prosecute them, declare open war against them. All we need is a consciousness of this is the dynamic between us. We can see the conflicts of interest. If Charlie Kirk was having a change of heart and maybe willing to talk about some of these problems, Jewish culture being antithetical to European culture, the Jewish religion, Talmudic, Rabbinic Judaism specifically being anti-Christian, America not being able to be truly sovereign when it is dominated by AIPAC lobbying and individual Jewish billionaire donors financing subversive movements in America like Antifa, capturing our institutions like the recent deal with TikTok. If Charlie was going to go start wading in those waters, in my opinion, it's not that hard. It's not a leap of logic to say, yeah, Israel wouldn't want that. And in fact, the influence that Charlie Kirk had, if before you were skeptical that, okay, Charlie changing his tune, whatever, big deal. Look at the response. Look at the packed stadium last night during his funeral. Look at the millions of people who are grieving, the people who are personally affected by Charlie's mission of being a devout Christian, delivering the gospel to millions of people. Clearly, Charlie had influence over tens of millions of people in America alone. I think that's a strong case to make to say those who care about Zionism, those who care about Israel more than America, they weren't willing to risk it. It's genuinely that simple. I understand that even up until his death, he was apologizing for Israel and trying to still protect their reputation, lobby for war in Iran, or at least justify it. I understand that he was willing to back off of the Epstein subject because he is a paid shill for the GOP. I understand that he was still in the Israel boat up until the day he died. But you can read the tea leaves. Another example of the tea leaves is on September 12th, 2001, Alex Jones went live on his show and said, Israel is going to pull us into a war with the Middle East. They are going to get us nuked. Did Alex Jones sit around having to wait for the hard evidence to make that claim? No, he was prescient. He was way ahead of everybody else in just being able to look at the pattern of behavior from Israel and say, I see how they would benefit from this. I see how their government is responding to this event. I know what they've said in the past about how such an event could create this alliance and mutual cause to go and do something about radical Islamic terrorism. I see why they would benefit. I see why they have the motive. It starts to feel a bit more like this was an orchestrated event with their hand in it, with cooperation from treasonous betrayers in our own government. So I don't know why Nick has responded the way he did, but I do think over the next couple of weeks, this is what I'm on the record saying last week. I put out an Instagram post. It was 3 minutes long of me responding with a voice post saying, I think as the additional as the additional information comes out from the FBI, as they try to spin this in accordance with the official narrative, and people continually poke holes in the official narrative, that narrative falls apart. And then you're only left with two other things, which are Israel did have their hand in this, or the whole thing was a hoax, which is a third leg that Nick has vehemently discarded and said anybody who thinks that this was a staged event is a conspiratard. They're the same people who think that the earth is flat. They're the same people who think that space isn't real. A lot of dismissive comments from Nick that he claims these people are anti-intellectual. I don't know if it's an age thing. I don't know. I genuinely just don't know. And I'm not bashing Nick whatsoever. Nick is still by far the best we have. He's better than me. He's better than anybody in terms of being a voice for this generation, bringing disclosure, exposure to the Jewish problem and standing up for white people. There's not going to be anybody who you fully agree with their commentary on all of the social problems, their spiritual point of view, how they see the genders. There's not going to be anybody. There's no perfect leader. So Nick doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to agree with all of his takes on every single subject in order to call yourself a groyper or to call yourself America First. And that's how I feel on this one. I am still devoutly serving the America First mission. I still see Nick Fuentes as the uncontested leader of the future of America. Inarguably so. He has the most talent. He has the most will. He has the most backing from the right kind of people. But I do disagree with him on his view of conspirators and people entertaining either Israel was behind this or the whole thing was a hoax. I think he should put more stock into both of those opinions. And unfortunately, those three different narratives, the FBI narrative, the Israel narrative, the hoax narrative, they're causing a lot of division within the right. And this is something I responded to, I think last night or the night before, where I said, listen, guys, at the end of the day, I genuinely just don't really care if it was a 22-year-old far left, radicalized and groomed by online pro-tranny groups, maybe also nudged with some FBI working behind the scenes, chat rooms, Discord servers, et cetera, et cetera. If that was who did it, that person genuinely took the shot, Charlie Kirk genuinely died, if that's what happened. Or if it was Israel who did it, because they were worried that Charlie Kirk was shifting on his stance around Zionism and perpetually defending Israel no matter what. Or if it's the third possibility, that all of this was a staged event and that Charlie Kirk is now living in witness protection. Whichever of those potential explanations you subscribe to, none of that changes two important things. One is that there is a subculture within the left. It's not the full left, but there is a portion of the left who have been lobotomized and radicalized into believing that political violence against the right, even the moderate right, not the far right people like us, is justified and is righteous. For one of our influencers, political contributors, to be shot dead live in front of 3,000 college students, live on TV, to shoot our president, that's okay because they deserve it. They had it coming. To equate Charlie Kirk to a white supremacist or a Nazi who has constantly talked about a colorblind meritocracy and a working class populism and how he doesn't believe that white people are innately any different than anybody else. Charlie Kirk was a race apologist, okay? They still believe Charlie Kirk is a white supremacist, and they still believe that he is a fascist Nazi. Those people exist very clearly, and they are dangerous to us. That's one truth that is unchanged by whether it was a tranny-loving assassin or a Israeli Mossad operative or the whole thing is fake and a hoax. That does not change the fact that the subculture within the left is radically violent and needs to be dealt with. It also doesn't change variable number 2, which is Jewish influence in our nation is real. It's been happening for your entire life. It goes back 100 plus years, and it must be simultaneously addressed at the same time as dealing with the radical left. Both of those things hold true simultaneously. As Nick has accurately said, we are living in a multi-front war. We aren't purely taking on, quote, the left. Many of the left don't like Israel either. They dislike Israel for completely different reasons than we do. They see it as a white supremacist colonialist state. That's not why we have a problem with Israel. But the threat that the radical left poses to us, them being the foot soldiers, we do have to worry about them simultaneously worrying about their puppeteers, who are the Jewish thought leaders who have created the leftist ideology and who perpetuate the radicalization in our schools and in our media, and who want to create hate speech laws that make it illegal for white people to organize. We have to care about both, and we have to fight back against both simultaneously. That's the most important thing. And one of the things I love that Nick talked about recently is how we have to be thinking about things in terms of power. Our objective has to be removing those who are hostile to us from positions of power and influence over us. That means the teachers in the schools and the doctors mandating the treatments and the governmental associates passing the laws, writing the laws, passing the laws, enforcing the laws. Any of those positions in society, the people running the media and creating the information diet for the masses, if all of those people, they do wield power over us, if they are trying to indoctrinate the next generation in this country with an anti-white, anti-Christian belief system, then we have to get them out of those positions of power. And this is tied to the Charlie Kirk database, where people on the right are utilizing cancel culture to get people fired from their jobs. And the number 2 career fields of the 100,000 individuals who are celebrating Charlie Kirk's death publicly: education and healthcare. So the nurses who you entrust to watch over your children, to care for them physically, your elderly, those nurses in the care facilities who are supposed to be taking good care of your grandfather, your grandmother, your elderly parent, well, when they hate white people and they hate Christians, and your parent or your grandparent is one of those, or your child is one of those, do you really think they have their best interest in mind? That they're going to put the health and safety of them above other children, other elderly people? And so those people can't hold power over us, just the same the people in government who have those anti-white, anti-Christian feelings. They can't hold power over us. And the people creating the media content that we consume that creates the information diet, they can't hold power over us. So our obsession should not be, oh, we have to get as much evidence as possible to prove it was a extreme leftist tranny lover, or as much evidence as possible to prove that it was Israel who did it, or as much evidence as possible to prove that the whole thing is a hoax. It's an AI simulation. There's a hologram chair. It's all Freemasonry. That is not what we should be pouring our energy into. What we should be pouring our energy into is defending ourselves by displacing these people who hate us from positions of power. That's how we win. That's how we secure the future of our country and the defense of our people, our safety, our well-being, our careers, the ability to practice our faith, protect basic things like the Constitution. That's where all of your mental energy should be focused. It shouldn't be infinitely pouring hours into accumulating evidence and creating Canva boards about 6 different potential shooters. Or did you see how many times they referenced the number 33? And did you see that they did the little hand signal? And do you see that she's covering up her eye or whatever? It's like, look, okay, shut up. Shut up with all of that stuff. We don't need to be fighting about whether or not it was a hoax, it was Israel, or it was some radical leftists. We need to be talking productively about naming, identifying, and holding accountable the people who have power over us, who want to see harm to us, who celebrate it when we are harmed. That's where our energy must be. So if you disagree with Nick about it's not Israel, it's actually just probably Occam's razor, the most obvious. This kid is who did it. If we disagree about that, okay, fine. Have your disagreement, move on. Focus on the people who are in power, who want us dead or disabilitated or poor, who want to trans our children, who want to force and impose diversity upon you, who want your churches shut down, who want to force you to take biological weapons. Let's focus on them, okay? Let's focus on the people who are genuinely trying to destroy us. We already know who they are. We already know that Israel has captured our nation, whether or not they had a hand in what happened to Charlie Kirk. We already know that there is a massive population of radical leftists who celebrate the demise of our political figures, who don't think there's a problem with political violence, who think that even the most moderate conservatives are Nazi, white supremacist fascists. We don't have to agree on if it was a hoax, Israel, or Mr. Leftist Shooter, okay? Let's move forward, please. Stop arguing with each other. Stop dismissing each other. Stop calling each other low IQ. That's my general overall understanding of the situation. I'm seeing these ranks dividing themselves and insulting each other, calling each other conspirators, low IQ, that's anti-intellectual. And unfortunately, Nick is playing into that. And I think maybe that's an age and maturity thing. I don't know what the deal is there. Either way, We already know who the enemies, plural, are. And so it's your responsibility to use your discernment to understand who the greater and lesser enemies are, but never take your eye off of either. Okay, sure. We know that leftism comes from Jewish thought leaders, the Frankfurt School. We understand that. The origins of feminism and communism and socialism, and the push for LGBT, the push for feminism, the push for pornography, prostitution, abortion. We know who created these things. We know who promoted these things. We know who forces the imposed diversity in our nations. We've already clocked that. We already have the receipts for that. It's not contested. Honestly, the Jews themselves confess proudly to these things. So just focus, please. Can we focus? Stay strapped, okay? That's how you deal with the left. You don't put yourself in dangerous situations. If you want to be involved in displacing them from power, naming them is part of that battle. That's what's happening with that collection of people who have posted publicly. They're celebrating Charlie Kirks' death. They're being put into a database. People are calling their employers, trying to bring them economic harm so that they can't be teachers influencing your children. They can't be in the medical field, in the health field, exposing a conflict of interest to us white Christians, potentially neglecting our care because they ideologically disagree with us. If they're involved in government in any capacity and they're known to be celebrating these things, they obviously need to be named and removed from influence. So find your way to contribute in that, or find your way to contribute in the ongoing disclosure of Jewish influence. We've made extreme progress in the last 2-3 years alone on that front. And so we just have to keep the ball moving and not allow ourselves to be divided and conquered. That's their strategy. Let's tell some of them that it's the left, and let's tell some of them that it's the Jews, and let's tell some of them that the whole thing is fake and gay. And then they're going to look at each other and say, man, I just don't agree with you. Maybe I shouldn't cooperate with you. No, we still have to cooperate on this mutually understood dual diagnosis of our two greatest threats: leftism, Jewish influence. Okay, you got it? I think we got it. I think we're good. With that said, you guys, appreciate your support. Go check out the Ken O'Keefe interview. You're going to love it, man. It's really, really good. Also, to support the Beholden To Truth platform, feel free to stop by the merch store, beholdentoTruth.com. Get yourself an anti-Zog or a Save Europa tank top, hoodie, t-shirt, water bottle, cell phone case, flip-flops, whatever you need, nutritional supplements. We got it over at beholdentoTruth.com. That does help the platform. I'm still unemployed, by the way. This is about 1 month now, a couple days over, since I was fired from my job for using a racial slur in my own personal private time. The cancel culture war continues, but we are interviewing and we're trying to solve that problem, and God is going to provide. All I need from you guys on that one is prayers. Just continue to pray for myself and for all of the people out there doing this work, standing on truth, as confrontational and controversial as it may be to talk about race realism, Jewish influence, the woman problem, feminism. The people who are willing to do that and who are willing to take the arrows for it, we/they/I need God's protection and his providence to just continue doing that work. Promise I'll keep doing the work so long as I got the protection, the ability to do so. All right, guys, we're going to shut it down. Got to get into this gym for our shoulder day. Till next time, you guys, take care of yourselves. America first, and Christ is King.
The few brave men who have actually tried to go out and do something about white genocide or talk about Jewish influence, the Zionist-occupied government, we all know that they get crucified, their careers get destroyed, and so we need to find ways to support each other. One of the ways that I have done that is by creating my Substack, where there are exclusive early access to documentaries, my weekly vlogs. There are ebooks there. There's even an opportunity to set up a one-on-one 30-minute Ask Me Anything if you'd like. All of the proceeds from my Substack, from my YouTube channel, from the merch gets reinvested in the platform. I use that to pay my employees. I use that to buy the equipment that I need, the cameras, the lights, the MacBook, all the books, all of the software, pay for marketing, everything else, but also it protects my literal life. So if you want to help out, please do head on to Substack, get yourself a subscription. Thank you. I appreciate it. America first, and Christ is